Hello everyone. So in the last two videos, we tried to cover some basics of React that we saw. You can always come and refer in my GitHub page in Anupama Notes. You can find it, or else you can go ahead and stepwise you can learn with me there. We have started coming up from the basics, and then we are now transitioning to different years and what evolvement had happened in the React, and we will try to see in brief everything, the concept wise. So this is what we already knew, the function React components that we had seen, Babel, NodeMon. You can always go back and refer my video. So then the next topic that we are actually going to cover is arrow functions. What are lambda functions? We'll see the hooks, which is used recently, which had been introduced later. And with that, we'll try to see what is array destructuring. Simple. So let's start with our code base. You are already familiar. The same code base I've been using since the beginning of the video creation. So instead of binding the method here, the one that we are doing, instead of that, let's understand the concept of lambda function, which came in ES6 version and the later name came it as ES 2015. In the year 2015, that became quite common. We can also see the same thing in Java lambda functional programming also, the lambda functions that we write. It is similar, the same concept. So what are we exactly trying to do? So whenever somebody is clicking something, instead of invoking this method bind, we will be trying to do the same thing from here. What do? We can just copy paste whatever the line is here. Perfect. So we are not invoking any method. Let's say it is one, so that we are understanding that I wrote it in between the paragraph tag element. Okay. So this looks quite simple. We can always use lambda function in this way. Let's go to our Chrome and start our localhost 3000. Okay, let's use our inspect and let's go to the React developer tool. The component we are using the app class. We can always see count as 0. We are increasing it count 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's increasing. This is in the app 1. Let's go to our code base again. In the code base, we will try to see that let's instead of writing it here, we can always write it here also the same way. Let's see only a bit of difference that we can see it here. So we will try to get back to our previous method where we write where we were invoking this dot increase and that increase button, we can say. So instead of this increase button, instead of writing it in this way, we will change the way of writing. So let's comment this out and how can we write it? So increase will, whenever anything is getting passed, the lambda method operator, let's give the same thing. Let's remove this empty line spaces. I don't like extra spaces or incorrect formatting. So let's change this to again 2 so that we are sure that we are checking the latest version only. So instead of lambda function writing it here, we are directly writing the event method handler as lambda function. So let's go back to our Chrome. See, we can see it is app 2. Let's try to increase it. So it's working. Perfect. Now coming back to our topic, uh, what we were thinking earlier was we had seen that we cannot use, say, in the functional components, we said that states and life cycles were not being used in the earlier versions of React. So we had a lot of problems. So whenever we wanted to use the functionality of state or we wanted to use the functionality of life cycle, we always needed to change our function to React class component. Why? Because when we say class will have objects, so it can have states which are actually objects for the class. But say if we have functions, we are not invoking any objects, meaning we are not creating any objects there. So how can we leverage the functionality of state? State, we saw that earlier in class. This actually refers to the window, but we tried to bind it to our class React class component we saw in the last video. So we'll not go there. We'll now try to see in the functional concept base of view. So the latest what they came up with the concept was hooks. Hooks are what? These are the same functions. So what this will try to help us? This will try to help us in getting in using these functionalities. So there were different hooks being introduced. Use effect, use state, we can say, use context, use reducers. You can by yourself go and see there are many life cycle not life cycle hooks, but many hooks, the functions in which can be used in functional components of React. And you can always definitely go ahead and customize it also. The customized hooks you can create, so that say if something is happening, we will have some state, or we will do some method in the life cycle after the element has been rendered. We want to do some business logic there. We want to free up the resources. We want to do something. So that's where the hooks actually became common. First, we will understand what is this use state all about. Use state, it helps you in creating states for the functional components. Okay, how does it help it? So it tells it that whenever and why do we is the name use state, and why not asked us why it should not be create state, why use state, because it is getting created in the beginning, right? No, but the actual reason is whenever the functional component is getting rendered in the beginning, that is when the state is getting created. So whenever we are actually using the states, we are in fact just using it. We are not initializing it or creating it. So you can always see the hooks, the name prefixes with use. So it is used. We are using it. We are not creating it. That is the main reason. Let's go ahead and see how we can create hooks. And hooks we can create in the functional methods, functional React components. So let's do one thing. Let's just copy paste this app class and create one function component. Uh, let's name it as app function.js. Let's copy paste it and let's just change it, meaning according to our class. So this is not a class. uh, if we want to keep it as default, that's also okay. So this is our function, and the function name we said that it should be app function, which will have parentheses and will remove the React component part of it. We cannot have constructors in the ancient way that we do for React components. We cannot have this, we cannot have this, not even this. Even render method is not there in return that we had seen in the earlier video. So this is the basic component. And let's remove this part. Let's have it in the basic way, and let's write it as app function. Okay. So app function one. So we'll know what we are exactly using. Now this we cannot use it because this is a function at the end of the day, not a class. So we have to directly use it, whatever we want, name what we want to give. So the names that we will be giving for a constructor, for a sorry state for this function will be count. That's what we are going to do. How shall we write it? Okay, sir. So we write it in this way. Uh, we will write const, and this is in fact an array which uses use state. And what is the initial value? Say the initial value of count we wanted is 7. So you can always write it as const use state 7. On the left, where are we storing it? So the first element of the array is the name of the state. that we are using. And the second element of the array is exactly what? The event handler. We used increase there, right? We can write increase here also. Or else let's follow the nomenclature, the best practice that usually people do. That is set count, set, and then the state variable name. So we are actually, this is the state variable name that we are using. So how can we use it directly here in the on click? What are we using it? How will you write it? Shall we use the directly the lambda function method way of working at it? Let's do that. We can always say on click, whatever happens, whatever is getting passed, what will we do? What are we going to do? We are setting the count. We cannot write this. We have to directly use set count. We are setting the count and we are increasing the count by 1. Again, this dot state is not required because these are state variable names only, which is being used locally for this functional component. That's how we write it. So, and the last thing that is remaining is let's bind this app function in our React class. So let's comment this one and let's get app function. Perfect. And the same thing, let's use it here also. One important thing that you can see is whenever we actually wrote use state, we forgot to see that we got the namespaced function import from the React module because it is a namespaced function of the React module, and this is the default one. Hope you are understanding. Meaning we can always go ahead and see what exactly it is. So that's how it works. Let's go to our Chrome. App function 1. So the count has started from 7. We are increasing the count. Simple, right? You can also see it here. It is increasing, increasing. It takes some time, but there's a lag, but that's okay. Meaning that is how it actually works. Now, say somebody wants to also use the functionality of use effect, say life cycle. Once this is getting, the element is getting rendered from this functional component app function, we want to do something at the same time. So what they said was component did mount. These are these methods which we had seen in the class. We had seen, right? We had used component did mount, right? So this is the same thing, meaning these life cycle did update, and the other one component will unmount. So these three life cycle hooks were being combined into one single API, and that is what is use effect. How do we write it? We write it in this way. So use effect is a function parameter. Whenever it is getting called, whatever is being passed, let's write it in the lambda way only. So use effect is getting called. Let's do something. Let's do what? Let's set the title. Let's set the title to backtick. What do you write? Count, and let's use the same count. Let's do this. So what are we telling? That whenever somebody is clicking the button, whenever this is happening, let's use invoke these lifecycle events and let's do some business functionality here. That is how it is being done. So let's change it to some other name too, so that we are sure. We will even be sure because we'll see the document title also there. So let's go back to our Chrome now, and we can see app function 2. Now see, count is 7. This is the document.set title. Once it got rendered, this document.set title, the title actually got set. So we are increasing it, we are seeing. So we have used the life cycle in our functional component. We are increasing, so it's working. We can see one another event, effect, the new thing that has come up. Okay, cool. Now let's go back to our class. Let's try to understand what is array destructuring concept? So we said that instead of using this, ideally you can always write it in this way also: count, state, variable. Okay. So use state the same thing and say the initial value would be 10. And how does it actually work? Meaning, when you fire this command, the array destructuring way of JavaScript, that is what it works. And how it works, like the initial value of count gets set to the same, the array name that we have given, count state variable, and the initial index. And the second one actually gets set as the same thing, the count state variable, the first index. So if we just comment this one out and just write this, and let's change it to 3 so that we know that it is the latest one. Let's go to our Chrome again. So see, the count start has started from 3. This is the third one. So we're increasing. So this is also working fine. So this is what is about hooks. How can we leverage it? What is actually the array destructuring? We don't need to change our components again back to functional components back to again React class. We can directly use states and lifecycle events in our functions directly. We understood how to write even the lambda functions. So that was the topic for today. That's all. Hope you enjoyed learning. We'll get back with a few more concepts like what is Webpack, what is Redux, from mapping state to props in the Redux way. We'll see that how we can have an HOC, higher order component, and then we can use props around. We will see state management. So we'll come up with separate videos for that. Stay tuned. Until then, you can always learn from the Reactjs.org page. You can always learn and read it. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks, friends. Bye.